You're listening to UMERADIO, and this is the UMERADIO Morning Show. I'm DJ Kelly, and it's now time for the news roundup. We're going to now look at the headlines from the New York Times, and then we're going to look at some migration trends, and then we're going to look at business trends. So in today's news, and it's January 10, 2020, the second Friday in the year 2020. It is Friday. So in the weather, today will be mostly cloudy, mild with a high of 51. And tonight, considerable clouds, mild, low 48. And tomorrow, cloudy, afternoon showers, breezy, warmer, and high 64. The weather map can be seen on page B12. The photo on the front page of the Times is it's a candlelight, and you can see persons placing photos on what look like steps, and there are a lot of small candles around it, and the text beneath it says, a vigil in Edmonton, Alberta on Wednesday. 63 Canadians perished in the jet that crashed in Iran earlier that morning. Downed passenger jet, US and allies believe. Canada's leaders seek inquiry as video shows blast over Tehran airport. This article is by Julian E. Barnes, Eric Schmidt, Anton, I cannot pronounce that word, and Natalie Kitroff, and it's out of Washington. And this is related to the story, to the image that's on the front page. So, American and Allied officials said on Thursday that they had intelligence that missiles fired by Iranian military forces were responsible for the downing of a Ukrainian jetliner and the deaths of all aboard this week in Iran, most likely by accident. The disclosures suggested that the deaths were a consequence of the heightened tensions between Washington and Tehran that have played out since an American drone strike killed a top Iranian general last week. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada, citing a preliminary preview of the evidence, called for a full investigation, open quote, to be convinced beyond all doubt, end quote. The jetliner was carrying 63 Canadians among its some 176 passengers and crew. Open quote. We recognize that this may have been done accidentally, end quote, Mr. Trudeau said at a news conference in Ottawa. The evidence, he continues, suggests very clearly a possible and probable cause for the crash, end quote. President Trump, speaking earlier at the White House, said only that he suspected that the downing of the plane was the result of a mistake on the other side. In quote, a mistake on the other side. Senior American officials were more forthcoming, saying that they had a high level of confidence in their findings. American intelligence agencies determined that a Russian-made Iranian air defense system fired 2 surface-to-air missiles at the plane, one official said. And video verified by the New York Times appeared to show an Iranian missile exploding near a plane above Parand, near Tehran's airport, the area where the jetliner Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 stopped transmitting its signal before it crashed. Those aboard the plane most likely faced horrifying final moments, starting with an explosion as the missiles detonated just outside it, sending shrapnel and debris spiraling through the fuselage. The plane turned back toward the airport, then began its uncontrolled descent toward the ground. American satellites designed to track missile launches detected the firing of the Iranian short-range interceptor. United States intelligence agencies later picked up Iranian communications confirming that the system brought down the Ukrainian airliner, officials said. That story continued on page A11. House passes measure to curtail Trump in Iran. President's war powers versus the prerogatives held by Congress. That's another headline, and that story is by Katie Edmondson and Charlie Savage. A sharply divided House voted on Thursday to force President Trump to come to Congress for authorization before taking further military action against Iran, in a sharp response to his ratcheting up of hostilities with Tehran without the explicit approval of the legislative branch. The vote was 224 to 194, almost entirely along party lines, to curtail Mr. Trump's war-making power. It came as Democrats insisted that the president must involve Congress in any escalation, and Republicans, following Mr. Trump's lead, accused the Democrats of coddling the enemy in questioning the commander-in-chief at a dangerous moment. The action was yet another constitutional challenge of the president by the Democratic-led House after his historic vote in December to impeach. After its historic vote in December to impeach Mr. Trump, and as the Senate was preparing for a trial on whether to remove him. The debate over war powers raged a week after the president ordered a strike against Major General Qasem Soleimani, Iran's top security commander, a major provocation taken without informing Congress that has had a cascade of consequences. And here's a quote: "If our loved ones are going to be sent to fight in any protracted war, the president owes the American public a conversation," said Representative Elissa Slotkin, Democratic of Michigan, a former CIA and Pentagon analyst specializing in Shiite militias and the sponsor of the legislation. The measure, she added, allows us to start that debate as our founders intended. And that story continues on page A12. Voting security evolves, so do Russian trolls. This story is by Matthew Rosenberg, Nicole Perlroth, and David E. Sanger. The National Security Agency and its British counterpart issued an unusual warning in October. The Russians were back and growing stealthier. Groups linked to Russia's intelligence agencies, they noted, had recently been uncovered boring into the network of an elite Iranian hacking unit and attacking governments and private companies in the Middle East and Britain, hoping Tehran would be blamed for the havoc. For federal and state officials charged with readying defenses for the 2020 election, it was a clear message that the next cyber war was not going to be like the last. The landscape is evolving, and the piggybacking of Iranian networks was an example of what America's election security officials and experts face as the United States enters what is shaping up to be an ugly campaign season marred by hacking and disinformation. That story continues on page A16. Those were the very top stories. And in other headlines, as others zig, Bloomberg sets path that zags. This story is by Matt Flegenheimer. Michael R. Bloomberg walked among the silos, bundled and reddening in the 9-degree air, negotiating the icy path that delivers a billionaire presidential candidate past the grain bins and the cameras and the tractor, straight into the middle of somewhere his advisors decided he should be. That place, at approximately 2 p.m. on Wednesday, was the cavernous maintenance space of a soybean farm in rural southern Minnesota, a state that does not vote until March, where a dozen reporters and a handful of locals had gathered to watch Mr. Bloomberg hold forth on the majesty of agriculture. And the quote, here's a quote: "You're the backbone of America," he told his hosts, who wore microphones for the occasion. Open quote, I eat what you grow," end quote. Mr. Bloomberg, the former New York mayor, observed at one point. They thanked him for his business. "It's easy for us living in big cities to forget about the rest of the world," he remarked before he left. "You don't see it every day." This story continues on page A19. France's strikes rage on, amplified by history. And there's a photo here of people with flags, and it's the text under it is: "The General Confederation of Workers Union has taken a harder line in the protest over pensions." Oh, it's a protest. Adam Nossiter is the writer, or Nossiter. And this is out of Paris. A bright red tapestry featuring the Cuban Revolution, Che Guevara, over the words "Onward Toward Victory," exhorts strikers not to give up in the union's dingy local headquarters. Outside, the locals' boss shouted through a megaphone at the GARE, seems like Gare de Lyon train station, "The rich should never forget. There will always be the sweat of the poor on their money." And that was a quote. Echoes of class warfare going back centuries. The transportation strike against the French government's pension overhaul plan is already the longest in the country's history. As it entered its 6th week on Thursday, thousands of protesters again took to the streets all over France. Who stands to gain and lose in the pensions overhaul demanded by President Emmanuel Macron is debated every day. Nobody agrees on the details. That story continues on page A7. And in international news, Buckingham Palace is startled. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had not received the approval of the Queen to become part-time royals, but news of the plan was about to leak. Page A4 has that story. Fires imperil tiny creatures. Scientists worry about the fate of species of insects and other small fauna endemic in Australia. Page A13. And in New York, battle of birdies and birds. The golf course next to Liberty State Park in New Jersey wants some parkland to lure more tournaments. That story is on page A22. In national news, unsettled life in Puerto Rico. People are camping out wherever they feel safe after an earthquake, complicating efforts to distribute aid. Page A15. Perilous work in frigid seas. The loss of the fishing boat Candice Rose highlights the dangers of working in the often inhospitable but productive waters of Alaska. And in sports, coach and self-help guru. The Seahawks' Pete Carroll is shaping his locker room talks with self-discovery for corporate America. Weekend arts, a mesmerizing view. The intriguing works of the Swiss artist Felice Vallotton are on display at the Met. Above, a self-portrait at age 20, page 63. The Theatre of Migration. A new show presents the journeys of migrants as universal and heroic, not just as tales of suffering. In business news, exchange hacked for ransom. Travelex, a foreign currency exchange company, has been forced to stay offline since December 31 after a ransomware attack demanding $6 million for the safe return of its data. Workers joked about 737 MAX. Boeing employees mocked the FAA and their colleagues in a trove of internal communications, with one calling the jet's designers clowns who are in turn supervised by monkeys. And that's the end of the headlines on the New York front page. We'll now look at some migration data. Origins and destinations of the world's migrants, 1990 to 2017. And our source today is pewresearch.org. In 2017, 49,780,000 people living in the United States were born in other countries. The figures in this interactive feature refer to the total number of cumulative stocks of migrants living around the world as of 1990, 2000, 2010, or 2017, rather than the annual rate of migration or current flows in a given year. Since migrants have both an origin and a destination, international migrants can be viewed from two directions: as an immigrant leaving an origin country, or as an immigrant entering a destination country. According to the United Nations Population Division, an international migrant is someone who has been living for 1 year or longer in a country other than the one in which he or she was born. This means that many foreign workers and international students are counted as migrants. Additionally, the United Nations considers refugees, and in some cases, their descendants, such as Palestinians born in refugee camps outside of the Palestinian territories, to be international migrants. For the purposes of this interactive feature, estimates of the number of unauthorized immigrants living in various countries are also included in the total counts. On the other hand, tourists, foreign aid workers, temporary workers employed abroad for less than a year, and overseas military personnel typically are not counted as migrants. So from Mexico, it's 12,680,000. From China, 2,420,000. India, 2,310,000. From the Philippines, 2,080,000. From Puerto Rico, 1,900,000. From Vietnam, 1,410,000. And from El Salvador, 1,390,000. And from Cuba, 1,250,000. From South Korea, 1,180,000. Dominican Republic, 1,070,000. From Guatemala, 980,000. From Canada, 890,000. From Jamaica, 770,000. From Colombia, 750,000. And from the United Kingdom, 750,000. From Haiti, 670,000. And from Germany, 650,000. And those were the top countries from which migrants came to the U.S. In other migration news, 10 years after Gudu Gudu, IOM assists Haitian women artists raise funds for the vulnerable. And we're going to be sharing a song with you that they have produced, which we at UMERADIO are supporting and have supported. And we're going to be playing it for you today. So you can hear the track that is currently being used to raise funds for the vulnerable. Let me just give you give you an overview. I'd just like to share the press release with you so you have an idea of the context of what this song is about. So from Port-au-Prince, to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the Haiti earthquake and remember its victims, IOM Haiti, its Goodwill Ambassador Felicia Ross, and a group of Haitian women artists have released the song Gudu Gudu on video, as well as it's currently being sold on CD Baby. Please support them. Named for the popular way Haitians described the earthquake, which devastated their country, the video will help raise funds for the many displaced Haitians still living in camps who still need support. The 7.0 magnitude earthquake devastated Haiti on 12 January 2010. That's on January 12, 2010. The International Organization of Migration, IOM, in coordination with the government of Haiti, UN, and other humanitarian agencies, has resettled 98% of 1.5 million internally displaced persons who were relocated due to the national disaster. After the earthquake, which caused the death of at least 220,000 people and injured tens of thousands more, IOM, the leading agency of the camp coordination and camp management cluster, supported the collection and monitoring of data on IDPs through the displacement tracking matrix. From this data, the necessary action in disaster management, shelter, and non-food items The necessary action in disaster management, shelter, and non-food items, protection, and health could be determined. After the earthquake struck, IOM staff responded within 24 hours, said Giuseppe Lopret, IOM Chief of Mission in Haiti. And that could be Loprete, depending on the pronunciation. We provided and coordinated the necessary services for survival, worked closely with the government of Haiti and international humanitarian aid agencies to find lasting solutions to the crises that left millions of people homeless and living in 1,500 camps, he added. More than 20,000 people were trained in basic first aid and disaster risk management in communities or camps. IOM also supported the construction or rehabilitation of 39 buildings that can be used as a short-term evacuation center. IOM Haiti, through the shelter cluster, distributed grants to support the costs of renting accommodation to over 19,000 households. In coordination with their organizations, IOM also distributed more than 2,550 shelters, 20,000 reinforcement kits, and 500 repair kits for timber-framed houses. As of December 31, 2019, many of some 1,477 evacuation shelters need at least some remediation. IOM Haiti maintains that it is crucial to continue strengthening the capacity of the national system for disaster risk management in terms of evacuation shelter management and other responses to disaster. In addition to addressing building needs, IOM provided immediate responses in areas such as gender-based violence, child protection, assistance to more vulnerable populations, and mediation support during forced evictions. As a result, more than 16,500 people at risk have been supported in the camps, 972 of which were for gender-based violence, and 333,333 people have received their identity documents. We keep praying for Haiti. That brings to an end our coverage on migration trends. Okay, so yesterday we shared with you information from the research produced by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. They've put together the complete guide to onboarding new hires, a 45-day checklist to take you from pre-arrival through the first month and beyond. So yesterday we shared with you that there are 6 phases in this onboarding process for it to be successful. So they are phase 1, pre-arrival; phase 2, first day; phase 3, second day; phase 4, first week; phase 5, first month; and phase 6, month 2 and beyond. Yesterday we shared with you onboarding phase 1, pre-arrival, and today we're going to be sharing with you phase 2. Yesterday I did that. Okay, so phase 2, first day. Avoid overloading your new hire by treating this day like an overview of what's to come. Introduce them to the team, cover basic information, and let them know how the rest of their week will look. By the end of the day, your new hire should feel welcome and appreciated, and eager to dive into their new role. 15% of companies only dedicate 1 day to onboarding new hires. That's the data. Okay, so onboarding phase 2, first day checklist. The basics. Ensure that someone is there to greet the new hire when they arrive. Connect with HR to make sure proper paperwork is complete. Show them how to use the phone and video conference systems. Explain how to book conference rooms and access computer systems. And detail relevant processes like creating expense reports and timesheets. Introductions. Announce the new hire to appropriate teams, sharing their bio and title. Arrange introductions to their co-workers. Show them how to get support from IT or HR. Welcoming them. Provide company swag to make them feel like part of the team. Share a list of nearby lunch spots. Take them out to lunch with some of the core team. You know, these things are really important because you go to somewhere to work for the first time and you really sometimes don't even know where you are. Sometimes it's the first time you're going to such a place, such a location, and sometimes you're just left on your own to figure it out. And finally, tour. Show them the location of bathrooms, printers, and copy machines. Also, and finally, show them where they can find office supplies, break rooms, and a first aid kit. I also want to share with you today 10 Gallup reports to share with your leaders in 2019. And this was put together by Ryan Pendle and Jim Harter. And this is a report from Gallup. And you can learn more at gallup.com. So here are 10 highlights from Gallup's workplace analytics team in 2018. And I'll only read to you the list. I won't go into the details, but I promise another time to go through the details so you understand this list. I'll do it on Monday. Number 1, leaders need to understand and improve the manager experience at their company. Number 2, your employee experience is your employment brand. That's so important. And as I go through this, I would like to invite you to view this from a personal perspective. You are a brand. You are your business. So even if you work for a company, you also have an employment brand. You are like a company in and of yourself, right? Number 3, respect lays the foundation for an inclusive culture. Number 4, how big is the gig? Number 5, employee engagement is on the rise, which is very good because it was like at 87% lack engagement. I think between 86 and 87 last year, which was really, really terrible. It means that people were just not engaged in their work at all. And this is something I want to talk about on one of our features. Just go right into it, because it's important when you choose work. And I think what happens is sometimes you find yourself doing work that just makes you miserable and you're frustrated and you start complaining about this or that or whatever. Sometimes it's not that you can't do something, it's that you're in a space where you're unhappy. It's not this is just not what you're just not motivated to be there. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes you're in one job that you're so demotivated, you're not inspired, and it impacts the rest of your life, and the rest of the things that would normally interest you sometimes start being affected because you're in a space where you're not as inspired. So it's very important. This kind of report is very important so we can see the workforce that we're part of, because when you're also working with other people who are unhappy where they are, it affects you too. Number 6, Gallup learning courses and programs are proven to increase employee engagement. Number 7, Clifton strengths, why you need to know all 34. Number 8, you can't create an agile company without great managers. Number 9, most employees experience burnout at work. I think I'm experiencing some myself. And finally, performance management is broken. And that brings us to the end of the news roundup for today. So we looked at the news headlines using from the New York Times front page, migration trends, and some business trends as well. It is my hope that it was worthwhile for you and useful information that was shared. And please remember that you can let us know by just leaving a comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can just leave a comment down below, or you can send us an email at info@umeradio.com. That's info@umeradio.com. And we can, once you send it to us, we'll just include that information that you're seeking in our reports, as long as it falls within what we cover and we have access to that information. So thank you so much for staying tuned to UME Radio.